Hi guys, welcome to my chit chat. So I'm going to talk a little bit quickly about nanobots. So nanobots are a form of technology. In case you don't know, go look it up. And it's been said that they're using nanobots inside of um, a lot of things, actually. So first of all, let's talk about the current weather. So today, actually, I woke up feeling really, really good. Um, I hadn't felt this good in about a week. If you saw any of my other videos over the last couple of days, I was waking up with just like this really heavy energy. Oops, I have some frankincense and myrrh over there burning. I forgot to put the actual gum resin on the charcoal, but I'll do it in just a second. This will be short. Let's hope. So, yeah, today I woke up. I felt great. I don't know what it was. I did burn some frankincense and myrrh yesterday, but it is also today the Lionsgate portal. So that could have something to do with it. I'm not sure. But it just felt like the air had suddenly been cleared out some. So I also think that I heard somewhere that there was some kind of lifting. I don't know where I heard that, but I don't know. I just, I did a whole lot of my internal stuff yesterday, and I called out some demons, called out some energies, prayed a lot, looked at some of my own issues, worked them out, even had a chat with one of my family members last night that really helped me. Talking to her, what actually happened is I woke up this morning and I felt like my heart chakra was clearing, whereas in the past, the recent past, I feel like I've been operating from my solar plexus and like really protecting and guarding myself, right? But when I woke up this morning, or actually when I went to bed last night, I felt like a little clearing that allowed my heart chakra, allowed me to move my energy from my solar plexus up to my heart chakra. And that makes sense because I think I'd heard somewhere that a lot of us were really being attacked in our solar plexus. So anyway, it was such a relief. I felt a lot of, hope and just lighter energy today. So I don't know if it was, like I said, the frankincense and myrrh that ran these entities away or energies away, but thumbs up for the weather today, energetically, at least. Maybe thanks to the what is it called? The portal, the Lions portal, 88. Okay, so anyway, having said that, let's talk a little bit about the nanobot technology that it's been said exists inside of these Greek alphabet doses that people are getting. And so this is kind of how my guides had always told me what was going on, because I tell this story about, I think I've told this before, it was my ex-husband's college friend, Bill, like 20 years ago or so. He came to visit, and they went to school at Cal Poly Pomona here in California, in San Luis Obispo. Did I say Pomona? Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And so Bill was a little older than my ex-husband, who's older than me, but they were kind of like in that generation. I remember when I first met my ex-husband, I was living in New York at the time, going to school. And, well, I met him right before I went off to school in New York. And he was working in telecom, and he bought one of the first like computers that I had really ever worked on. It was like outside of school, and back in the day, I'm aging myself, but that's okay because I look good. Back in the day, they were super expensive. Like a computer was about $5,000, and it was for this big old clunky computer. that didn't really do much except compute. We didn't have internet or anything like that back then. It's hot. I have the fan going and it's still hot. so, anyway, Bill came over about, this was like after we had been married and had kids, but it was still a long time ago. And he was I was saying that he was, they were like, he was one of those first people to like he was like Bill Gates type, and Apple, not Bill Gates, I think it's the Apple guy. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name right now. They were like building computers in their garages and stuff back in those days, right? And so Bill just has so much knowledge. He went on to get a PhD in, I don't know what in, but something that had to do with, computers and stuff, technology or whatever. And so at this time, he was headed off to a conference. And again, this was like 20 years ago. He was headed off to a conference in Hawaii. They had invited him. Now, Bill was a character. Anybody who knows or remembers, what's the guy's name from The Shining? Used to sit in the Lakers games all the time. Jack Nicholson. Yeah, he looked like Jack Nicholson. And just crazy, used to smoke a lot of weed before it was legal, but brilliant mind, right? So he came to, visit my ex-husband, college, buddy. He brought his girlfriend, and we had dinner. I made dinner, I think, that night. And I was, I always loved to sit around and pick Bill's brain because he was just so brilliant. He was crazy, which was fun, but he was brilliant. And so I remember I just started teaching, and I think I was substitute teaching. And I used to always tell my kids about microchips because, I've always been into this. I think I'll do an introduction for my YouTube channel, but, I used to always talk about, I was always into metaphysics. I used to go to MUFON conferences, et cetera, since way back in the late 80s. And even before that, I was interested in paranormal phenomena because of my family, the family I came from. But anyway, so I was picking Bill's brain about microchips because I had been telling my students at the time about RFID chips. And, I would always tell them, I would always tell my kids, I bet them $1 that this is the year of disclosure. And I went on doing that for probably 20 years. And this is the first year that I finally redeemed myself. I often wonder if my students don't, aren't trying to look me up to find, to tell me, oh, you were right, But anyway, these microchips were always so fascinating to me in a diabolical way because it was a prediction of where we were headed within Christianity. Of course, you've heard of the mark of the beast, and I grew up under Christianity, so technology always had this sort of nefarious tone, right? So anyway, Bill was explaining to me that the RFID microchips, which were the size of a grain of rice, for those of you who've been into this for a long time, were actually old technology, and that they most likely would not be using them to track people, even though they had been using them actually at that point. They were using them for pets. I think I remember hearing that firemen were had microchips so that they could be identified, and they were promoting it. I remember how they were promoting it in all types of venues, even in schools here in Los Angeles. My students were telling me at their elementary school they had been approached because I was teaching I was teaching at a magnet that was aeronautical, and so it was a feeder school for a lot of these companies that were in the area who would come and talk to the kids about different technologies. And so they would tell them, they were what do you call it, grooming them back then for technology, the next level of MK Ultra, which is what they did to our generation, my generation. So anyway, Bill was telling me how those RFID chips were old news, and that the actual real news now was bio-encased microchips, which I don't know if he called them nanobots at the time, but the way he explained them to me, which was interesting, because it would be years later, decades later, that they would introduce the 3D printer. And now when I think back to it, the way he introduced it to me, when the 3D printer came out, I remember thinking, oh, wow, this is what Bill was talking about, like, so the 3D printer was based on how, so the way Bill told me about this was, he said, these chips, or these, he said, think of it as now you have to think, this was 20 years ago. It's like, think of it, maybe even a little bit more than 20 years. But he said, think of it as a little tiny microcomputer, like microscopic. You can barely see it, and it has, like, it's super advanced, and all you have to do is give it information and materials, and it can build whatever. And he even told me that they're going to be putting these inside of people and helping, like, this is one of the ways that they pitched it. It's going to be able to go inside the body and do all kinds of surgery for sick people, and make people well, and it's just like highly advanced. Like, this is one of the selling points of it. He said, but the reason why the microchips were not such a good idea is because people's bodies were actually resisting the microchips. And so he said what was happening is the body was recognizing the microchip as a foreign object or foreign material, and the immune system was either attacking it and then attacking itself and shutting down, which really, when you think about it, could actually be an explanation for all of these autoimmune diseases that have come up over the last 20 years that we didn't really have prior to that. It could be because they were testing us with nanobots, right? Technology. So he told me that these new microchips were, again, some of them were going to be microscopic, and they would be encased, bio-encased, so that they would be encased in biomaterial, plasma, and when you took them, your body would not be able to distinguish them between your natural cells, because they were encased in all kinds of stuff that belongs in your body. They would be basically hidden, right? And so he told me that they were going to be putting these in food, and Bill was not a conspiracy theorist, I must say, but he said they were going to be putting them in food, putting them in clothes, and all kinds of stuff. And so, interestingly, I remember as time went by, 10 years, however many years, I remember I would always think of Bill when there would be some new, announcement about certain things, remember those smart clothes? I haven't heard much more about them, but, they were for people who exercised, and they soak up your sweat, not soak up your sweat, but keep you cool. I don't know how they do it, and they would say that it was using some kind of technology. Well, some people say those were nanobots. They say that they've been putting nanobots in food for a long time to enhance flavors, to just do all kinds of stuff, right? Especially fast food, I heard. So anyway, these nanobots that they've been passing, so this became a theory that I had, and I probably, I always would get validation after Spirit would send me information, or my oracle body would put things together, or just my analytical mind would deduce things, because I was very scientific minded back then. I had taught physics before. So yeah, it was natural for me as this progression continued on, because I knew what I was looking out for or listening for based on what I had previously known. The premises had already been set. And so when this came along, the alphabet phenomena, I immediately, because even prior to that, I was thinking, the flu shots, I was thinking, I was never interested in that, because I'm like, you don't know what we're getting. But also, it was said that in lotions and shampoos and like everyday products that we use, that these were also full of these nanobots. Now you have to think, a nanobot, again, we have the technology. It's not a question of, oh, do we have technology for microscopic, little computers? We know that we do. And we know that the phenomena of giving a 3D printer, for instance, information and materials, it can build just about anything. So if we have nanotechnology and we have this other kind of technology that 3D printers use, I mean, of course, that we have CRISPR and we have all this, of course they can inject things into your body microscopically and have them act as something different in order to get in your body and lodge in your body and stay in your body, right? And if you keep getting bombarded with it and they keep tweaking it based on information they're picking up from, who knows, maybe they're picking up information from the nanobots themselves in order to keep tweaking them, to keep them embedded in your body. Now, I think people with high consciousness and autonomy within their subtle fields spiritually, so now we're going to talk a little fringe, but people who are aware, because you have to remember, quantum theory has even finally proven that our awareness, we interact with things based on our consciousness, our awareness, our intent, our whatever level we're at, we can interact with matter and change it, right? We can also shapeshift. That's another topic for another time, but that's really important. And those of us who have a lot of Native American and indigenous DNA, and who have cellular memory and abilities of shapeshifting, know that we've used that tool a lot to escape certain traps as well, with regard to our molecular structure and stuff like that. But that's a topic for another time. Back to the nanobots. You get these nanobots deposited in you. One, they're a high level of technology magnetism. So if they're somewhere, it's kind of like, if you guys, I don't know if you remember, some of you may remember HARP and that whole phenomena. Look it up if you don't, HAARP. But again, I think they surpassed HARP and the plan with HARP as a transmitter receiver, interacting with our bodies, and graduated to using these particle accelerators. Again, I always say 30,000 worldwide particle accelerators we have. And we have those hadron colliders, which do other different things. There's the one CERN, the big one in Switzerland. But Japan has, I think, a couple of them or something that are a little smaller. Japan also has been rumored to have a artificial sun that they've been experimenting with for a while now. So again, if you have these nanobots in people's bodies and you're able to, you're basically formatting them for a bio AI type of entity, and you can interact with it on all kinds of levels. You can feed things into the brain. And if these things, maybe these things are even, these nanobots are, some of them are specifically formatted for the human brain. So if they're in your human brain and they begin to interact with it, through transmissions with their machines, then you can hear all kind, you can be thinking thoughts that aren't yours. And back in the day, we used to call that like demonic possession, which still is, because I've talked about the archons before, who are sort of like akin to demonic entities, although they're not the only kind if you were dealing with demonology. But they definitely deal with your mind and feeding thoughts into your mind that you think are yours, kind of like that, the thing of like having the devil and the angel on either side of your shoulder, and hearing voices talk to you, schizophrenics, but not even at that extreme level. So having nanobots injected into you and then having the controllers interact with you is a great way to create a dystopia where you control other humans via their own biology. And again, it's also about reformatting humans into a artificial intelligence, a bio artificial intelligence. So anyway, I know I've probably gone over my time, but I'll talk a little bit more in the future about nanobots, and also some other technologies that you should be aware of if you're not already. And then as we go down this path, this journey together, we can put all of these pieces together and kind of get a better picture and have more effective discussion and interaction with regard to what is going on, what the heck they're trying to do here in this new dystopia. Okay, great talking with you guys. Catch you next time for my chit chat. Peace.